January 13th, 532 AD, the Nika Riots. On January 13th, 532 AD, the Nika Riots reached their apex when two of the largest chariot racing fan base, the Blues and the Greens, joined forces to rebel against the rule of Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian I inside the Hippodrome. Chariot racing was huge in Constantinople, and the four most popular teams were the Blues, Greens, Reds, and the Whites, who battled it out on the Hippodrome racetrack for large cash prizes and fame, and the teams had a large fan base of supporters. The sport of chariot racing is comparable to today's NASCAR, English Premier League, and National Football League in terms of popularity, and die-hard fans would wear the colors of their favorite team. They also behave like the worst aspect of modern-day sports fans because they brought along violent behavior with them to the races, and they would often attack their rivals and cause riots whenever their team won or lost. The rioting would often occur within the Hippodrome, which would be violently quelled by local authorities. During one race, members of the Blues and the Greens got into a huge fight, which ended up in the deaths of several fans. On January 10th, 532 AD, a member of the Blue and another member from the Green fan base, who were involved with several other fans that were arrested during a recent sports riot, escaped execution after being tried for murder by fleeing from prison and hiding inside a nearby church for sanctuary. Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian I, sensing tension brewing within Constantinople, along with troubling foreign affairs along the eastern border of his empire, decided to hold a special race day on January 13th to commemorate the commutation of the two escapees from death sentences to life in prison. But on that date, the fans of the Blues and the Greens, before the 22nd race took place that day, demanded that the emperor, who was watching the races from the safety of his palace box, demanded that those two fans be pardoned and released. When he refused to do so, both rival factions united and started to chant, "Nika! Nika!" The two group of fans, after throwing another destructive riot inside the Hippodrome, marched in unison to the Imperial Palace next door and laid siege to the complex. The next day, their angry crowd grew larger. Instead of trying to negotiate with the volatile mob, he said that he will host another day of exhibition races, but this did little to quell the siege of his imperial palatial complex. Meanwhile, some members of the Eastern Roman Senate who did not like Justinian for various reasons attempted to use the Nika riots to their advantage and attempt a coup to remove him from power and install a new emperor. Some of them even gave orders to arm the rioters as they continued to besiege the palace and began to cry for Justinian's head. Rioting began to spread throughout the city as the rioters targeted imperial buildings such as the original Santa Sofia, which was vandalized and nearly burned to the ground. Justinian wanted to abdicate his crown and flee the city, but his wife, Empress Theodora, told him, "Those who have worn the crown should never surrender its loss. Never will I see it the day when I am not saluted empress. Who is born into the light of day must sooner or later die, and how could an emperor ever allow himself to be a fugitive? Royalty is a fine burial shroud." Instead of fleeing, Justinian came up with a plan that involved his trusted generals, Belisarius, Narses, and Mundus. Narses would bribe the leaders of the Blues fan base with a large quantity of gold, and they called all their followers to drop their arms and leave. The Greens fans remained inside the Hippodrome to crown their own emperor, Hypatius, the nephew of former emperor Anastasius and the pick of the rogue senators. The Green fan base leaders and the remaining rioters who didn't leave were then locked inside the Hippodrome and were slaughtered by the imperial guards led by Belisarius and Mundus. The usurper that was crowned, Hypatius, was later arrested and was to be executed at a later date. According to Procopius, over 30,000 people were killed in the carnage. Justinian exiled all of the senators involved in the Nika riots. Hypatius was brought before Justinian, who was willing to spare his life, but Empress Theodora ordered him to be executed. The destruction of the city led Justinian to rebuild Constantinople, including a new and improved Santa Sofia, which would become the jewel of the Eastern Roman Empire.